What is Halloween to you? Commercialized nonsense? Or the best time of the year? Or does it simply mean new goodies will arrive in your favorite game? Whatever it may be, do you know where the idea of Halloween even comes from? Let's start with the name. On November 1st, the Catholic Church celebrates All Saints' Day, also known as All Hallows. Take away these three little parts from the term All Hallows Evening, push the rest together and voila, you get the name Halloween. Which is also the title of an 80s Atari game that I stumbled across as a pretty young kid. You play as a babysitter who saves children from a knife-wielding maniac. When he catches you, your head pops off and there's blood gushing everywhere. It was actually pretty scary back then, and Pixel Michael Myers featured in a number of my nightmares. Those now have a new protagonist, but more on that in a bit. Back in the 1800s, Irish immigrants brought the idea of Halloween to the US. And there it slowly evolved into the big deal that it is today. But its roots go way back. The Celts were celebrating the end of summer, a successful harvest, their deceased loved ones, and the end of their calendar year in one big spectacle, Samhain. It was basically Thanksgiving, New Year's Eve, and Halloween all at once. During this time of transition, the boundary between the other world and our world was supposedly pretty weak, so spirits could come and go as they please. If you're interested in this stuff, you should definitely check out the PS3 game Folklore. Huge recommendation from me. But back to topic. Big bonfires were lit to ward off the evil let loose, and people disguised themselves to confuse the spirits. And thus, the idea of dressing up as scary creatures was born. Think about that the next time you play Overwatch and dress up Mercy as a witch. The concept of trick-or-treating is also pretty old, and it was surprisingly enough not invented by candy companies. It probably evolved from the medieval custom of souling, when children and beggars would go from door to door on November 2nd, singing and receiving so-called soul cakes in exchange for prayers. Like most modern holidays, Halloween pretty much turned into a festival of consumption. People stock up on sweets, costumes get bought, and carved pumpkins appear everywhere, even in virtual worlds. Be it Pokemon Go, Destiny 2 or Fortnite, many games now offer some kind of Halloween event. One of my favorite versions takes place in Tyria, the setting of the Guild Wars MMOs. And that's not because of the minigames or the spooky decoration. Nope, it's thanks to this guy, Oswald Thorne, also known as the Mad King. After learning his backstory, he definitely reserved himself a spot in my nightmares. Once upon a time, he was merely known as the second prince of Kryta, with a loving older brother that always defended him. Jokes on Crown Prince Ewan though, because later Oswald tricked him into the web of a giant spider that ate him. And their father also went to an early grave because of Dear Oz, which led to him being crowned king. During his reign, commoners faced famine, while Thorne himself held big banquets for his court. And he buried food in the ground to grow more. Among other marginal things like skinning villagers alive, nailing stilts to the legs of flood victims, or firing flaming debris at freezing people to keep them warm, this made him really unpopular with his subjects. And not only with them, even his own equally cruel son Edric hated him. Which didn't exactly endear him to dear old daddy. And he ultimately ended up locked in a box with only a mouthful of candy corn, starving to death. Thorne's insane rule finally ended when an angry mob stormed his palace. They were supposedly very creative with his body. He is now king of his very own part of the underworld, and is only able to return to Tyria for a limited amount of time every year, Halloween. When the grinning moon casts its light on Lion's Arch, its inhabitants, and hundreds of pumpkins waiting to be carved. Do you know where that comes from? According to legend, there once was a guy called Jack, who tricked the devil into never taking his soul. However, once he died, he was also not allowed into heaven. He had nowhere to go and nothing to light his path. The devil tossed him a burning coal, and because it was his favorite food, Jack always had a turnip with him, which he hollowed out and placed the ember inside, carrying it as a little lantern. And that's how the jack-o'-lantern came to be. The story behind it is what makes a simple carved vegetable suddenly interesting. And it's the same with Guild Wars 2's Mad King. If you play the game without taking a lore deep dive, you'll probably just see him as an arrogant idiot with a pumpkin head. But somehow that makes it even better. Pure evil hiding in plain sight. It's like a good horror story. The best ones shock you with something you would have never expected. And with that, I wish you all a happy Halloween. Don't be too scared of what lurks in the dark. See you next time.